Good evening and welcome to Alan's Italy. Um, we are in a makeshift studio, not our usual situation. We haven't been in the Woodstock Public Access studio since November 12th of 2014, so it's been over 3 months that we've been waiting to do a broadcast. We actually tried a couple of weeks ago and had some technical problems. We're here tonight and we're going to give it a shot. Um, it's, it's just another level of challenge for the concept of public access. That's how I view this. I've been thinking about it over the past week, and I get upset when we can't do a show, but it's part of the whole thing. And it reminded me of the show we did a couple of years ago when we had the founders of public access, I suppose, but certainly Woodstock Public Access, um, Toby Carey and Bart Friedman, who I interviewed on the show, and they told the story of how they had to drag the cable up a mountain in order to broadcast. And I'm saying, this is exactly what it's like to do a public access television show. It's just one challenge after another. But what carries us through all of this is, the simple concept that it is difficult and it does require a tremendous commitment and a lot of fortitude. And Ellen and I are in the studio now, and we had a bit of a challenge for the first 15 or 20 minutes, but, we're pushing on, hoping for the best. So I hope that this is coming through, and let's take a look at tonight's show. Okay, well, now I'm having a slight bit of difficulty, but I think it's okay. Okay, we're moving along now. Okay, so there it is on the screen, I hope. Alan's Italy, show number 105. And we're going to be talking about the really charming town on the Ligurian coast by the name of Portovenere. And that is a picture that Laura snapped from the top of the castle that we were, we'll talk more about that in a little while, but that is a really great view of the harbor that Portovenere is situated right next to, and you can see the town over there on the left side. And we'll talk more about that in a few moments. First of all, a bit of news that I think even Ellen doesn't know about, and that is that the TV show Alan's Italy, which is on YouTube, as you know, has just gone over 20,000 views. And, you know, it's astonishing. I was waiting. I knew this was going to come very soon. I was kind of, tracing the progress of the views over the past several weeks. And I knew it was going to come pretty soon. I wasn't sure it would come this fast because the past month it has really been a plethora of new subscribers and people. Whenever I get a new subscriber, you can see there at the very top of the page where it says 71 subscribers. And every time I get a new subscriber, of course, the person wants to see all the shows. So right off the bat, you have somebody watching perhaps 10 or 20 just on their own. But over the past month, close to 1,000 people have watched, or I should say, people have watched 1,000 different shows. In the past month, and the past 3 months that we haven't been on the air, we've had about 2,000 views since then, 12 more subscribers, and 10 people have commented on it. The top show is still the Roman Forum show, which was show number 28 with Professor Yves Dombra. and in the past 3 months, 245 views, for a total all time, which is the number one show of all the shows I've done, of 1,651 views. The second most popular over the past 3.5 months has been the show in which I focused on my favorite Renaissance artist, Domenico Ghirlandaio, which was show number 95, and that show has gotten 228 views. So people have been going to that for some reason. I have a whole. I mean, there are a lot of shows about a lot of different topics, and what interests a person more than another show. One show as opposed to another. I'm not sure, but whatever it is, over 20,000 views in the past 3 years. And you can't even say, well, that's 6,500 a year, because when the show was first put on YouTube, we were getting maybe 20 views a month, and it's really increased. So I would say that 20,000, probably in the past year, it's gotten about 10,000, or maybe somewhere between 7,500 and 10,000. So it's taken hold. People are talking about it. People are sending me emails. I'm getting comments, mostly likes, although I must say that I have gotten a couple of dislikes. And, that's good, because people are watching it, and some people like it and some people don't. And they're telling me when they don't, and it's interesting. So there it is. And we now start on our next 20,000, which was actually, I put this on Facebook, and I indicated that I was like, really, I was very prideful and very pleased, and also a little astonished that we have so many views. And my good friend Franco Sala, who owns the restaurant in Civita di Bonareggio, indicated that it's just the beginning. So who knows where this will lead. My last show number 104, was put on YouTube 2 weeks ago. And this was actually the only broadcast that has not come out of the Woodstock Public Access Television studio. It actually was broadcast from the Panda TV studio in Tivoli. And I was debating whether to put it on or not, because it wasn't, the Woodstock. And I decided to do it because that's part of the experience. I'll be able to say that, someday I've had like hundreds of shows that Woodstock has broadcast, but I still have this one that Panda broadcast. So very interesting. That was the last show number 104. This is a map of Italy, as you could see. And the trip we took in May and June of 2014, we started, we flew into Milan, which is up here, drove to Cinque Terre. That was our first stop. Then we went to Florence, or in this Florence area, although we stayed in our friend's house, Lydia's house, in Tuscany. And then the final part of the trip was back up here on Lake Como in the town of Varenna. But the sequence of shows that I've been doing since then started in Cinque Terre. Then it moved, started in Lake Como. This is it right here. I'm not going to, battle with this. I'll just look at the visual aid here. So even though we ended the trip on Lake Como, the show number 98, which was the first show we did based on the trip we took in May and June, was Lake Como, the town of Varenna, number 98. And then you could see number 99 was the Barrio Molo, the special 100th anniversary, An Evening to Remember, which was that wonderful restaurant and boat ride we took with Simone that wonderful night. And then number 101 was Bellagio. And then we left Lake Como, in terms of the broadcast, and went to Cinque Terre. And then we did 102, which was a boat ride down the Ligurian coast, focusing on all the 5 towns. And then number 103, which was Monte Rosso, Al Mare, part 1, which featured the hotel with Matteo Pazzini, the Hotel Villa Steno. And then number 104 was Monte Rosso al Mare Part 2. And tonight we're going to talk about the final show based on the 4 days we spent in Cinque Terre. And that's going to be the show of on Portovenere. And you could see that after this show, we're going to go to Tuscany, where we're going to be focused on some really extraordinary, magnificent Tuscan towns that Lydia brought us to. And that's number 106, 7, 8, and 9. And that'll bring us to the end of the shows that will be broadcast based on the trip that we took in 2014. Okay, so, excuse me. Back to Portovenere. Let me tell you a little bit about this amazing town. Well, let me show you where it is first. I found this really wonderful map on the internet, and you can see Cinque Terre over there on the left, and the town of Monte Rosso, which is where we stayed, is right over here. And here's Portovenere right over there. And here's the story of how we wound up going to that town. We were staying in Monte Rosso, and on the final day that we were in Monte Rosso, we told the owners of the hotel, Villa Steno, Matteo and his wife Carla, that we wanted to take the train from Monte Rosso to Levanto. Levanto is out of the picture over here on the left side. It's right over here, but you just can't see it, just not indicated in this particular picture. And they said, well, you're not going to be able to do that because there's a train strike. So, you can't go to Levanto. However, we suggest that you go to Portovenere for two reasons. One, the boats are running, and also Portovenere is a much more beautiful town. And this was their opinion because Carla had grown up in that town of Levanto, and she said she knows Portovenere very well also. And it turns out that Portovenere is a much more beautiful town. So we decided that we were going to go there. So, we got on the boat at Monte Rosso, and we went along the coast to Portovenere over there. You could see at the bottom. You could see here the town of La Spezia. This is the town we stayed in when we visited Cinque Terre in the year 2009. So you could see, it's all in that same area, along what is known as the Ligurian. This is the Ligurian Sea right here, which is right on the Mediterranean. And the trip began in the town of Monte Rosso. We walked to this point, which is where the dock was, and we got on that boat, and off we went. There's the dock, along the coast. And, taking a trip along the Ligurian coast from the point where Cinque Terre is to the point, I don't even know how far south Portovenere was, but the boat ride was about a 40-minute boat ride, a ferry boat ride. And we passed all the wonderful 5 towns. The one you're looking at now is the town of Vernazza. And there's another picture of it. A beautiful town. That is the amazing town of Cornelia, which is the only town of the 5 towns that is not right on the water with its own beach. That's the town of Manarola, and that's the town of Rio Maggiore. And then we left the 5-town area and began traveling along the coast. And that's, one of the views that we had as we were going along the coast, south of Cinque Terre. And the first glimpse we get of Portovenere was this shot that Laura took of the church over there on the right side, on that little hill over there, with the castle. This is a better shot of it, actually. This is a close-up view. And let me tell you a little bit about Portovenere. Portovenere dates back to the 1st century. And the name Portovenere refers to the Temple of Venus, which stood on the spot where that church now is. That's the church of Saint Peter the Apostle. And Venere in Italian means Venus. Porto means port. So the port of Venus. That's where the town gets its name. In the Middle Ages, it became a base for the Byzantine fleet, which used this spot, as a port for their fleet. It was a stronghold for the power of Genoa. It was in Roman times. Portovenere was a fishing village, as many Ligurian ports were. The castle that let me move to the castle here. You see the remnants of the castle over there to the right of the church. That's the Doria Castle that was built over the course of 5 centuries, from the 12th century to the 17th century. When Cinque Terre was designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, Portovenere was included. So this is a specially designated town, which is known as a World Heritage Site. Incidentally, the Church of St. Peter's was built, it began being built in the year 1198 and was updated in the 13th and 14th century. So this town really goes back quite far. Now, as we go around the castle, entering into the bay, this is the view that we had looking back. And now we're looking forward more towards the town, moving now away from that point where the church is. And now we're getting closer and closer into the harbor. And that's what the town looks like. It's a really colorful and a really exciting town, as you could see. And we have a few more. There's a really close-up shot of what it looks like. And you can see right along the harbor there are restaurants, and people walk along that. We'll get some better views of that in a little while. And that's a view of the of what you would see when you get up close to it. And now we're entering the harbor itself, looking back now towards the castle, towards the town. And the harbor, okay, so this is a really good shot because this gives you a picture of what the town looks like in relation to the castle, with the Church of St. Peter the Apostle over there on the left side. And as you can see, it's a really charming town. And now we're entering the actual harbor with the dock that we're going to be coming to. We're just about at the dock now, because you can see the boats over there in the foreground with the town right behind it. And now we've pulled up at the dock and we've disembarked, and we're now walking along the walkway which brings you to the town of Portovenere itself. This is when we get to the very end of the dock, looking back towards the entrance to the bay. Now we're standing right on the walkway, looking back at where the boat docked. You can see the boat over there in the background with the people disembarking. And everybody who had a plan to take a train somewhere on this particular day changed their plans and probably instead took the boat to Portovenere. So there was quite a crowd there that day. This is a restaurant right as we disembarked, and we were debating whether to actually have lunch and then start walking around and looking at the town, or the opposite way. And we decided that we were going to continue and look at the town. So we began walking down this dock, and then we decided to enter the main piazza. Now this is a very interesting shot because you get a really beautiful palm tree over there in the distance. This is, I wouldn't say the northernmost point of Italy, but it's certainly further north than, let's say, Rome or Naples. And there's a palm tree right in the center there. And this is the main piazza. And everybody kind of starts their journey here. You can see the backpackers over there on the left side, and a little, what looks like a little tour group over there on the right, with the cafes in the distance. And this is the main piazza. And if you look to the left, you will come to this. This is not. This is, I think, a makeshift castle. This wasn't the actual castle. This is just something that was built. The actual castle I showed you earlier. But this is, the entrance to the town, and there it is right there. Now, the more I look at that, the more I realize maybe this was the actual castle, because it looks like a castle. When I first looked at it, I thought maybe it wasn't, but obviously it is. And there's the entrance straight ahead. And if you walk through there, this is what you come to. And you come to a very commercial street with stores on both sides. Very charming town. You could see that it was a nice warm day, and there are some beautiful stores along here selling flowers and plants. And you know what this is? This is really something very, very interesting. This was a restaurant, and you could see the curtains hanging straight ahead. Those curtains are made of pasta. That's actually pasta hanging down that was used by the restaurant as as their curtains. This is more of to me, it looks more like an osteria, because you have the counter over there in the front, and it also sells pizza. And that's another store. And that's what, people do. They walk up and down this commercial street, and they go in and out of stores, and you get some really beautiful things to look at. And, we got to just about this point on the street, and we decided that we were just too hungry to continue. So we decided to turn around and go back the other way. And that's us, kind of turning around and going back towards the entrance that I showed you earlier. And there it is. And, I apologize to the town for, indicating that was, I'll tell you, I was thinking more of another town we were at, of the town of Sirmione on Lake Garda, where it was a castle. I called it a castle, but it turned out to be just something that they built to kind of make it look like a castle. And I was thinking of that, but this is really, part of that original town. And we went through that entrance into the piazza again. That is a monument to, I believe, World War II. Not totally sure. Do we have a close-up? No, I don't think so. But that is a monument to the veterans who fought in the war. That is, again, looking back towards the entrance. More of the cafes, we're in the process now of choosing where we would eat. And, everything looked good, and it's Italy, so the food is going to be delicious. And we chose this place right here. And we chose this for a number of reasons, not least of which is the obvious reason that you're probably saying, well, this restaurant has a gorgeous view. And that's pretty much why we chose it. We chose a table right towards the front, and this is where we dined in this restaurant. And at the time that we sat down, there was hardly anybody there, so we kind of had the restaurant for ourselves. And this is what we both had. This is again, hard to look at. This is linguine and clams. You know, they don't have linguine and clam sauce in Italy. They have linguine with the actual clams. And this is what we ate for lunch that afternoon, which was, believe me, quite unbelievably delicious. Okay, then we left the restaurant and decided that we were going to head towards the castle, uh, the top of the castle and the church of St. Peter's. So we decided to walk along the walkway that was right next to the bay, and that's what it looked like walking along there. And what you're looking at now is the spot where the ferry boat actually brought us right in there. And then we got to this point, and we walked up those steps right up to the very top of where the castle is. It was a beautiful, beautiful day, as you could see, with just stunning blue sky. And that's, this is a view looking to the left, straight and to the left, and this is the same view looking towards the right. So this is kind of a peninsula where this castle had been built. And we walked up those steps, and we came to this point right here. And this is, right at the very end of where the castle was, looking back at the direction that we came down the coast. So that's what the coast looks like, the Ligurian coast, looking, instead of south this time, looking north. And this was a very interesting picture that I wanted to include. And the reason is that, first of all, it's very beautiful, because that is, what the rocks look like jutting out into the bay. But if you look very, very closely, you will see people on the rocks. And you could see how small the people look in relation to the real majesty of the rocks jutting out into the sea. I think I have a couple of more pictures of that. Well, there's a close-up of the people. Everyone goes down to the bottom there, and they kind of sit and relax. And it was a very cool spot on a day that was starting to get warmer and warmer in late May. This is a really nice shot of that whole area. And another view of the Ligurian Sea. And if you look very, very closely, and let me point out what I'm referring to. You see this spot right over here. Not this, but over here, right at the very, very end, which you could very, very barely see. This is the town that we started in, of Monterosso al Mare. So the ferry boat actually started here and then came along the coast to the town of Portovenere. And that is a picture of us that somebody took for us overlooking the spot that I just showed you. Looking up towards the castle. Again, looking out at the sea. And then, if you go back the other way, they have benches, and, people just sit there and look at this magnificent sight with the incredibly blue water and that amazing rock formation jutting out into the bay. Now, we were thinking of going up this steep flight of steps to the very top, and we decided to not do that, so we just kind of took a picture of it, and then decided to come down. And once again, another view of the Ligurian coast. This is actually a better view of Monterosso. So once again, this is the area of Cinque Terre. Right around, you can't see Cinque Terre until you go around this bend, and when you do, you come to the town of Rio Maggiore, and then Monarola, and then Cornelia Vernazza, and this over here is Monterosso. So this is a really great shot of what it all looks like with the rocks in the front. And we spent an awful lot of time at this point, not only because of the beauty of the scenery, but also this was a nice, cool spot. Again, that's a view of the steps leading up to the top of the fort with a church in the background. And we decided that we were going to try to walk to that church. But we didn't want to walk along the pathway. And, let me show you a couple of things here. This, you see, these are the steps we walked up, and you could see people returning, going back the other way. And what you would do is go down here and then down this over here to the town. And we decided to go down. We actually started going down and then veered off to the left and started going this way around that way. Okay, so, we could have gone back that way, but we decided at this point to make a left and try to make it to this church, which we never actually got to, but that was the plan. And as we were walking down that pathway, we again looked back at the castle with a really stunning view of how that deep blue sea looks in relation to the sky and the clouds. And this again is the campanile of the bell tower of the Church of St. Peter the Apostle. And, again, this was built in the 12th century. And that was the goal. The goal was that church over there straight ahead. And we began to walk up again and into the town itself. And this was a really amazing view of what it all looks like. And there are towns all along the shoreline. Now, we didn't go to any of those towns, but the ferry ticket that we had would have entitled us to go to some of the other towns along here. I know that one of them is called Lerici, which is a really beautiful town that a lot of people on the ferry were talking about going to, but we didn't. We decided not to do that. We decided to just stay here and have a relaxing day. But you could spend an entire day just going from one town to another shot of that blue sea. A similar view, but looking more to the left. This is, on the battlements. This, I guess, is where they positioned the archers and the, riflemen and the cannons, which commanded a magnificent view of any oncoming vessels. Another look. Now, this was very interesting. This was right on the shoreline, and this is the statue of Mother Nature, which is a modern sculpture, which was created as a tribute to the architect and sculptor who lived in the town by the name of Lello Scorzelli, who lived from 1921 to 1997. And that was a very, very interesting statue right along the side there that we decided to photograph and then go back and do some research as we continued walking through the town. We're going back in a different direction. It's the same direction from the way we came, but through the town as opposed to walking along the dock. And this was a really beautiful walkway here with some beautiful houses and flowers along the way, as you could see. And the people obviously really take a tremendous amount of pride in their houses, and this was, what one of them looked like. And, you could see it's a really charming town. And, people actually live in these dwellings. And now we're back at the harbor on the dock taking a last look. And we're actually, I think, on the boat now, headed back towards Monterosso Almaty. So we're on the boat now, going back towards the north. And here we go along the coast. And that's what the coast looks like just south of Cinque Terre. So the five towns are actually more towards the left, and this is what the shoreline looks like going south. A really beautiful coastline on the Ligurian Sea. And that's the town of Rio Maggiore, and the boat actually stopped there. On the way back, the boat, for some reason, began stopping at all the towns along the coast. So this was Rio Maggiore, and it made a stop there, and some people got off and some people got on. This is a really great view of it. You can see it's built right into the mountain. Kind of one house on top of another as you go up the hill. And, we're continuing along the coast now. And that's a really beautiful view. We decided to take this photo. The boat docked at the town of Vernazza. And we decided to take a couple of pictures. And there are some people waiting to get on the boat. But what I wanted to point out to you is right over here. Focus right over here, where my pointer is going around. That is a restaurant which is built right into the mountain there. And that is, we didn't go into the restaurant because we didn't get off the ferry boat, but that was a really, really beautiful restaurant. And I can imagine what it's like having lunch or a limoncello or a glass of wine or a prosecco, sitting at one of those tables looking out at the incredible view of the Ligurian Sea. So that was, really nice. And, the ferry boat got closer and closer to Vernazza and was just about to dock, and once again, people got off and some people got on. But this is a really wonderful view of the town of Vernazza that we spoke about during one of the earlier shows. And then, back on the ferry boat, and the ferry boat continued along the coast, and we wind up back at our home base of Monterosso Almaty. And that's what it looks like from the sea, looking back towards the town. And that brings us to the end of tonight's show. And I'd like to spend a few minutes now talking about what's going to be coming up during the next 4 shows. As I did earlier, we're going to begin to look at northwestern Tuscany by starting with one of the really beautiful towns in that region, the town of Lucca. Now, I mentioned that Lydia took us here, but in reality, Laura and I actually came to this town alone. Then we went to Lydia's house, and decided to go back with Lydia to the town of Lucca, drop off the car, and then she would take us to other towns in that region. But we're going to focus an entire show on the town of Lucca. And, I've been to this town probably, 3 times. Laura's been to the town twice. And you could see that it's really a stunning town. It's large. It's not one of these tiny little Tuscan towns. It's actually a very large town. And I'm going to focus on all the different aspects of the town of Lucca on the next show. So that's next on Alan's Italy. And I hope you enjoyed that little tour of Portovenere. And that brings us to the end of tonight's show. I hope this went out over the airwaves. I hope it, went on to the DVD and will wind up on YouTube. Thank you very much for watching. And buonanotte e buona fortuna.